Hi, I'm Carolyn and you're in North St. Louis, and I'm a community builder, and my passion is teaching people how to build community around the things that they're most passionate about. Welcome to our garden. This urban homestead is part of a larger intentional community, a Catholic worker village. And right here we have 15 fruit trees, including apricots and peaches and plums and figs and berries. And all of that is to feed ourselves and to share with neighbors. And we do a lot of gardening here with kids in the neighborhood. How are you today? So the Catholic worker movement is, it's a pretty hard thing to describe. It's not really connected with the Catholic Church in any way, but it was founded by Dorothy Day and Peter Morin, who were very steeped in Catholic spirituality. And they borrowed from the best of the Benedictines and the Franciscans and the Irish monks and the French anarchists and the Paris Commune. They kind of threw it all together into a recipe that has been enticing to many, including me.
Just the one night.
The first time I met Carolyn was at a Catholic worker gathering in Las Vegas, and she stood up and talked at one of the roundtable discussions, and I knew that I would be moving to St. Louis sometime in the next year, and I immediately knew nothing in particular stands out about what she said, although I do remember her describing a bit about the community here, but just her presence in the room, and as she talked about what it meant to her to be part of community and how she made that part of her life and how that was part of her family's life, I immediately knew that this was the place that I wanted to be when I got here. I spent a bit of time with her in this garden here, and just being with someone who knows so much about this little piece of land that she lives on and so much about caring for the earth has just been a real source of inspiration in my life, and has created a desire to foster more of that growth in my own life.
All of the food here serves ourselves and our neighbors. There's a few CSA members, and some of those members are folks that live right here in our neighborhood. You can see the okra in bloom. There are several beehives. This is the outdoor kitchen. But a bigger piece of our life is creating an alternative. And as an alternative to the isolation of modern family life, we live in community. These buildings around here are all a part of a community where people share meals, share resources, people help one another with child raising. And another thing we do is we try to build a culture where everyone's included. So this house here, it's called Carl Cabot House, is a home that we share with folks that are homeless, that are usually immigrants, often people that don't speak English, live here with us as a family. One of our guests here, Enrique, has lived with us probably about 7-8 years. He was at one time schizophrenic. Well, he is schizophrenic. At one time he was living in an abandoned building eating nothing but dumpstered bread for several years. And he moved in with our community totally having a hard time connecting with anyone, malnourished. And after a while, we got him on the right medication. He became part of the family. He's one of our best cooks. He teaches us all salsa dancing, and we've reconnected him with his family both in Cuba and in St. Louis. So he's a proud grandpa of 2 children.
Ready?
Yep. Wow.
One of the things that's most attractive to me about living here is being around people who are going after their dreams and just trying to figure out what it means to them to really live well in this world, learning how to take care of themselves well, take care of the earth well, and look out beyond that to the community that we live around, and even further beyond that, how we can be a positive force of change in our world today.
We're just a mile north of downtown. And this neighborhood is an example of post-industrial abandonment. Most the white people moved out of this neighborhood, white flight. St. Louis is a city the core has been abandoned. So when we moved here 13 years ago, all of these buildings were to the ground. We really had no neighbors other than abandoned buildings, and a lot of homeless people squatting in the buildings. This neighborhood was at that time 90% abandoned. We bought our first house, that orange house right there, for $7,000, 4-bedroom house, and we began just sharing it with people in need and attracting other people that were excited about living in community to join in our work. So we've had kind of an urban renewal here. Do you want to end in something?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Lead us in a final prayer.
Eat food, have fun.
Should we join it? Should we do it?
Burgers, eaters.
Okay. Great.
Now we're gonna be fat. Oh!
So the boy, you didn't know this the first time you ate it, but this is local beef with venison. Do you know what venison means? It means deer. So this is beef with deer. You ate a deer just a little bit ago. We find that living simply and living in community, we have something to share. Like the model of mutual support of community frees us up to give. And I want to grow and I want to be a good person. And I think that like the model of the nuclear family where you're just getting feedback from one person about all your patterns and is not really conducive to growth. There was an idea back in the Benedictine monastic tradition of the rock tumbler effect of living in community, that you're rolling around and bumping up against so many other stones that your rough edges get worn off. And that's truly my experience of living in community. This is a really fun life. I studied in college molecular biology and immunology. I went to a prestigious medical school. I got really sick and was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and lupus and all these other things, and had to really look at, like, shit, if I'm not going to live long, what kind of life do I want to live? And at one point, I was traveling back to medical school, quite sick, hoping not to come back, but coming back, and I just really heard Spirit speaking to me the words of Scripture. I think this is Isaiah. I set before you life or death, choose life. And I just realized that God's will was kind of that simple, for us to choose life for ourselves and life for others and life for the planet, and that what I was choosing, the institution that I was part of, the medical system I was part of, the lifestyle, was death for me. I was losing my love of life, and that there was no goodness in that. Even if I had some sort of ideology of service, there was no goodness in that. So I said yes to that, to choosing life, and I realized that to really live my life fully, I would need the support of community, because I wanted to do something what seemed like life to me was quite different than the options I had seen thus far. I wanted to live a life of simplicity, of closeness, of service, of connection, and really working for social change. So I actually left that medical school with maybe $80,000 in debt or something, and got an old car and started visiting intentional communities. And I arrived at the Catholic Worker in San Antonio, and I just knew I was home. I just really knew I was home, and I've been in this movement ever since. And now my passion is just to really share what I've learned about what does it take to live in community and to create a culture that's healing, and where we're a healing force for one another and for the culture as a whole. We want to be modeling a different culture, a culture that demonstrates caring and self-giving,